Caroline, thanks so much for your time. I mean, perhaps we can begin with the fact that we were both watching the interview with Thuli Madonsela, and you agree with quite a number of things that she said, and you say that they could be applied to what you're doing now. Perhaps you can just explain further.
Well, as you've actually had the introduction on the Africa Expansion International Conference, one of the major leadership themes that was encompassed within the conference was talking about ethics as well, and connected to that, governance. So I think that we have, because of our focus on the leadership of our sector, and through doing that through the African Expansion International Conference, we are hoping that we are making a difference in that space as well. Ethics
are quite a critical thing in the financial services sector if we take a look at what has happened this past year. But let's maybe put the spotlight on the initiative right now. You're expanding this program beyond South Africa to the rest of Africa. So what was the rationale behind that?
At the same time, as I said, it is principally a leadership program. But an important part of the leadership program is cultural immersion and also cultural intelligence. As you were saying about the themes of the conference, that was also one of the major themes. And we would not be able to do that without actually looking beyond the borders of South Africa and principally in Africa. So this was actually meant to facilitate that types of skills transfer, because we had delegates, 20 in total, that actually came far afield across the African continent, and we were very happy with that because it actually also encouraged that collaboration, not only between the banks, but across countries.
And I like that term, cultural intelligence. But so you're looking or this learnership is looking to upskill workers there in the banking industry, to ensure the sustainability of the industry. I imagine that the skills required for banking today going forward are a lot different to what would have been done previously.
Yes, thank you for the question, Fifi, because one of our major outputs from the BANKSETA side is our sector skills plan, which we do on an annual basis. It is it's a very rigorous research process where we undertake to see what are the skills priority areas that are within the banking and alternative banking sector. So with that, as it could change year on year, as it is done on an annual basis, but management and leadership has been one of our more stable, if I could say that, in terms of skills priority areas. But together with that, with the fourth industrial revolution, it was not a surprise that technology and digitization was also one of the five areas in which we need to focus on in terms of the banking sector.
And it was a sort of further conversation, staying with technology and innovation had at the conference, because, I mean, some even think that banks in their form right now are not even going to exist in the future.
Yes, and I think that was one of the solutions that the candidates also needed to pose in terms of what is going to happen going forward, the future focus, looking at what the disruptors are with banking. And I think one of the key things that came out of the conference as well in terms of the synergy between the presentations is that there's collaboration. It's not how it used to be, and they will need to seek partners across the range of service providers, not only fintechs, but looking at the mobile communications network. But in that way to be sustainable, and also to offer those services to the clients across not only South Africa, but across the continent too.
I'd like to actually hone in on that subject of a disruption, you know, by way of what the fintechs and the blockchains and the bitcoins and all of that are doing. I mean, how can one train a worker now to essentially be a disruptor themselves? Because the one way to guard yourself against disruption is to disrupt.
Yes, and I think that one of the main things, because obviously they would depend on the individuals and what they're actually doing within the banking sector. But from our side, from a skills development side, the programs such as Africa Expansion Leadership Program was positioned to do such that, to actually expose these leaders to different contexts, and within those contexts, see what can be anticipated. But as we all know, it's unknown every single day. So it was just there to equip and to enable leaders to try to anticipate what kind of solutions they would do, but also within the leadership style, and try to take the bank sector forward in that way. But it's not an easy task. It really is complex.
For certain. I mean, many people are trying to get their head around exactly what this Bitcoin is and why it's just, you know, today it's at 11,000, tomorrow it's at 9,000, right? But this learnership program, I mean, how can young people on the continent access it?
Well, we do have information on this particular leadership program on our website, and specifically a hyperlink of the www.bankseta2017.org.za. There are other leadership programs as well that we do offer, and learnerships, as you've already mentioned, on www.bankseta.org.za. But I think that the research outputs that came through from the Africa Expansion International Conference would be of interest to all those that have an interest in what the future may hold and what the solutions may be in terms of inclusivity. In terms of participation, at this particular moment, it is focused on the leaders within the sector itself, so those that are employed within the various employers. In this case, we looked at the four, which would be ABSA, First Rand, Nedbank, as well as
Standard Bank.
Yeah. Yes. How could I forget?
The Apologies
to Standard Bank.
They must be so hurt. They must be so hurt.
Yes, it's only four. Sorry about that. But yes, Standard Bank definitely was included, and they form part of our steering committee as well. So they helped to craft that. But at the moment, it was focused on them because of their expansion into Africa as well, and their presence there.
But I do see that the Africa expansion rollout this first time it's subject to it's a small number of countries. I know it's Zambia included there. Who else?
It was Senegal, and then on the east side it was Mauritius, and obviously South Africa. So we focused on those 4 countries as part of the pilot program.
All right. Is there any reason why those particular countries?
I think it was a combination of various factors, because we looked at also geographical location. We wanted there to be a side spread across the continent, and also to look at what are the state of the financial services sector. Are they doing anything in terms of, from a disruption, digitization perspective? What is the economic growth looking like? And also in terms of partnerships, were there any other partners existing within the countries that we could also leverage from? And also with the help of Duke CE, that proved to be quite helpful in the selection of the countries.
And the issue of financial inclusion, because I understand that, I mean, more people in Africa have cell phones and actual bank accounts.
Yes.
So how is this learnership program also perhaps helping to drive financial inclusion or greater financial inclusion on the continent?
I think that I would have mentioned before in terms of the themes and what we wanted these leaders within the banking sector to actually be exposed to. And I think the social development and upliftment and inclusivity was definitely one of those. So when they actually were posed with certain of the solutions or what problem statements, they had to look at ways in which they could actually also leverage from the mobile communications. It is actually in one of the research papers as well about sustaining networks, and you'll be able to find that also on the website that I've mentioned. But that was also part of the solution. So it was there to also provide that context to say, what is it that we can do, that banking is not as normal as it was before, and together with the other question that you asked about how we can actually leverage off from other disruptors in that space.